Hello, I'm Clayton Burch, State Superintendent of Schools. Each and every week we come to you and we talk about the one caring adult, the folks that are really on the front line taking care of our children. We've talked about bus drivers, we've talked about our service personnel, cafeteria workers, nurses, teachers, administrators. And today I want to highlight a very special group that is right there with our children each and every day, and that's our school counselors. From day one, when we closed down on March 13th, we knew that our children must be taken care of. The governor, the state board, they dedicated resources and energy to making sure our children were fed, and they challenged us to make sure these children were looked after. One caring adult, eyes on these children were very important leading up to September 8th. Now, school has been back in. We've gotten our first 2 months of school in, and oftentimes that means that some children are in person, some are remote, some are virtual. The map each and every week indicates when we can be in person and when we must adjust and go remote. And I've continued to talk about a state of crisis. Well before the pandemic, we were already a state dealing with over 7,000 foster children, one of the highest rates of poverty in the nation, leading the nation in opioid deaths, and also tackling on a daily basis child abuse and neglect. And this is what our schools face each and every day while we try to close that achievement gap and give all of our children the best chance. Well, today I want to highlight a very special guest. And from Ohio County in the Northern Panhandle, Madison Elementary, we have the Title I coordinator, Jessica Watt, joining us today. Jessica, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
So on March 13th, when we closed down the schools, as a school counselor in Madison Elementary, you know, what's the first thing that went through your mind, and what happened soon after?
I think that the first thing we wondered is, are the children going to be safe and are their bellies going to be hungry? Just go right to those basic needs of Maslow's hierarchy, and if those basic needs are going to be met, because they get a lot of safe time here at school. They get their food, often they get their clothes, and those needs are being met here. And when you pull that out from under the rug, a lot of those services cease to exist in their lives.
Let's talk about, you know, sometimes not having eyes on children for 5 or 6 months before we have them back in our classroom. As a school counselor, you know, how important or maybe how troublesome was that to have that long of a period of time for those children not to have eyes?
On a pretty regular basis, we work closely with our local child protective services. Children trust the adults in the school. We teach them to report to us when they don't feel safe and to identify trusted adults here. And so it's a regular practice for children to come to grown-ups and tell us that something's happening that they need help in becoming more safe with, or that abuse and neglect is occurring, whether it's the child disclosing that information directly to a trusted adult at school, or whether it's something that we as adult eyewitnesses see and pick up on with the children that we come to know so well. And so I think that as a school counselor, that was a big concern, is that now who are the safe eyes that we're going to have on these kids? And I do have to tell you, in the first 9 weeks of school, we've made more CPS reports in the first 9 weeks than we typically make in an entire school year. And I do think that's the direct result of so long of the children not having people to go to tell that something is happening to them that shouldn't be happening.
Well, you know, that's really disheartening to hear, but it's also the reality we deal with. So can you tell us a little bit how you as the school counselor spent your summer and preparing, and your entire school system preparing to come back to school in September? How did you prioritize, or what did you prioritize?
Well, as a school counselor, I was fortunate enough to be one of the people in the first cohorts that went through WVDE and Marshall University's VOLT program, the Violence, Loss, and Trauma. And so the timing of that was interesting, because I had started those classes in January, and then they went through July. And so I spent a lot of time that had already planned on spending learning more about trauma before the quarantine even happened.
So, you know, Superintendent Kim Miller, the Ohio County Board, and definitely your principals in Ohio County, you've really embraced the whole child approach. Could you tell us a little bit about how important that is as you've come back in those first couple months of school?
Well, kids are coming back with academic deficits, and I'm even being told deficits in things that we're not even thinking about, like OT and PT kinds of deficits, because we can have beautiful platforms to offer instruction virtually, but there's something about being a 5-year-old and being in school and picking up a pair of scissors, picking up a book and getting that the reading skill of just knowing what direction to turn a book. The familiarity with that, with interacting with their peers, with running and hopping and skipping in PE class. So we are seeing deficits, kids coming back in with gaps in those kinds of areas.
Definitely have a support system in place for those coming back in person. So can you tell us a little bit about the first 8 weeks of school? You know, you've got September and October under your belt now. How was it dealing with, let's just remind everybody, a worldwide pandemic and coming back into the building?
Overwhelming. For the first month solid of school, I spent most of my time on phone calls with families and sitting down with people, just trying to help people understand the platform and understand how to log into their devices and understand how to access all of the different apps that are being used to help the children learn.
So as a school counselor, you're taking care of the present. How are you preparing for the future?
Well, what am I worried about? I'm worried that we're going to have more weeks like this week where we're on a level orange and we're remote. We only have our self-contained IEP students in the building this week. And so all of the students that have been coming every day, all of a sudden aren't. And so those students aren't used to any kind of a virtual learning routine on a daily basis. So I'm concerned that we're going to have more weeks like this where children who are used to being in school and not having to learn on their own are going to have weeks that pop up here and there where they're going to have to learn on their own.
So Jessica, I think you absolutely are that model that we look at when we think of a school counselor, and let's just be real honest, that one caring adult that we know our children need. On behalf of the West Virginia Board of Education, Department of Education, thank you so much for what you do and for being with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have this opportunity today. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to our perspective.